Something has shifted inside the royal family, quietly but unmistakably. Behind the gates of Windsor and Sandringham, insiders say private conversations are taking a dramatic turn, and one name keeps resurfacing for all the wrong reasons: Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. Reports now claim he and Sarah Ferguson have been quietly removed from the royal family's Christmas plans, but that small detail is only the beginning. Because according to those close to the situation, Andrew is facing something he's never dealt with before: a complete collapse of the royal deference that protected him for decades. The respect, the silence, the carefully controlled loyalty, people say it's fading fast. And as new allegations, resurfaced connections, and long-buried communications emerge, the palace's ability to contain the fallout is slipping away. This isn't just another step in Andrew's downfall. It's the start of a chapter that reveals just how far the monarchy may be willing to go to distance itself from him. If you want the full breakdown, make sure to subscribe. You won't want to miss what comes next.
When Andrew walked back into Windsor Castle after months of hiding from the spotlight, he expected the same old atmosphere. The bows, the quick nods, the careful respect that had followed him since childhood. But this time the air felt different the moment he stepped inside. Staff who once shifted nervously around him stayed perfectly still. Guards who used to snap into crisp salutes barely acknowledged him, and the people who had always addressed him with royal formality now used a title he never imagined he would hear inside those walls: Mr. Mountbatten-Windsor. According to reports, this wasn't the result of confusion or oversight. It was deliberate. A quiet but firm cultural shift ordered from the top after King Charles made the decision to strip Andrew of his public roles, his military patronages, and the last traces of his old status. For decades, Andrew's presence alone was enough to keep people on edge. Palace employees were trained to bow, step aside, and maintain a level of deference that reinforced his position. But the moment he returned, it became clear that era was over. What stunned him most wasn't the silence. It was the sense of empowerment in the people around him. Some stood taller than he remembered. Others looked him directly in the eye, something that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. Even small gestures, like the lack of a nod or a withheld greeting, hit him harder than any headline ever did. Inside Windsor, respect is currency, and Andrew could feel his slipping away in real time. For a man who built his identity on hierarchy and privilege, this wasn't just uncomfortable, it was disorienting. The castle he once dominated now felt like a place where he no longer belonged, and the staff, many of whom had spent years walking on eggshells around him, finally had permission to treat him like any other private citizen. The shift wasn't loud or confrontational. It was subtle, but it carried a message sharper than any public statement. You are no longer one of us. And the blow to his pride didn't end there.
The next hit came in a place Andrew never expected: his daily routine. For years, he enjoyed a private meal delivery system from Windsor Castle, a quiet perk where staff would prepare and send dishes straight to Royal Lodge, no questions asked. To him, it wasn't a luxury. It was normal, a royal given, something that simply happened because he was Andrew. But not anymore. Sources say the castle kitchens received clear instructions: nothing is to be sent to him. No special meals, no personal requests, no quiet accommodations behind the scenes. If he wants lunch now, he has to handle it himself, or rely on whatever Sarah Ferguson manages to put together between her side projects and stalled book ventures. And for a man who once expected staff to meet his needs instantly, this change wasn't just inconvenient, it was humiliating. And that humiliation hit harder because of his history. Andrew was notoriously difficult with palace employees for decades. Former aides have spoken about his clipped tone, his temper, and the way he barked orders without a hint of gratitude. He was known for demanding last-minute flights, freshly pressed clothes at impossible speeds, and immediate responses to even the smallest requests. He didn't just expect deference, he demanded it. So imagine how those same staff feel now, finally free from the pressure to serve a man who rarely thanked them. Being told to stop the meal service wasn't just a procedural adjustment. Many insiders saw it as poetic justice, a reminder that the royal machine no longer revolves around him. What's even more symbolic is the timing. The monarchy rarely cuts off personal comforts unless they're sending a message. And in this case, the message couldn't be clearer. His royal treatment is officially over. But the cracks in his old life don't stop with food or titles. The next blow strikes at the place where he spends most of his time, his home. And that battle is about to expose just how fragile his remaining security really is. If losing royal courtesies and daily privileges stung, the next crisis hit Andrew where he feels it most, his home. Royal Lodge has been his fortress for decades, a sprawling, secluded estate he considers one of the last pieces of his old life. But with his public role gone and his finances under scrutiny, that fortress has turned into a battleground. Behind the scenes, pressure has been building for months. Insiders say King Charles wants Andrew out of Royal Lodge entirely, arguing that a non-working royal shouldn't be living in one of the most valuable properties in the royal portfolio, especially one he's reportedly not paying proper rent for. The palace's patience is fading fast, and conversations that were once polite suggestions have hardened into something closer to orders. The plan being quietly circulated is simple: relocate Andrew to a smaller, more remote house on the Sandringham Estate, a place with less space, less staff, and far less prestige. To most people, it would be a comfortable home. To Andrew, it's a demotion so severe it might as well be exile. And he knows it. Sources say he's been resisting every attempt to move him, insisting that he has a long-term lease and that Royal Lodge is rightfully his. But the monarchy's stance is shifting. Tradition doesn't protect him anymore. Sympathy doesn't exist. Even family ties don't guarantee support. The royal machine is cutting its losses, and Andrew is on the wrong side of the equation. As he fights to stay in the property, the isolation round him grows. Public appearances are rare. Invitations are fewer, and inside the palace, the private sentiment is blunt. Andrew is a liability they can no longer afford to shield. What once separated him from the outside world, his titles, his status, his home, is slowly slipping out of his control. And just when it seemed like the worst had passed, something far more damaging surfaced. Not a rumor, not speculation, leaked emails, messages that tear apart the one narrative he's clung to for years, the idea that he had distanced himself from Jeffrey Epstein long before the scandal exploded. What those emails reveal will change everything. Inside the royal family, the leaked messages didn't just spark embarrassment, they triggered something closer to alarm. The monarchy has spent years trying to seal the Andrew chapter brick by brick until it was little more than a distant shadow. They removed his titles, erased his public role, cut off his military connections, and kept him out of official events. They hoped silence would do the rest, but the emails changed everything. For the palace, the worst part isn't the content, it's the implication. If these communications surfaced, what else might be out there? What conversations, what calls, what private messages could still exist in someone's inbox, waiting to be revealed at the worst possible moment? The monarchy cannot control digital paper trails, and that loss of control terrifies them far more than any headline ever could. Those inside the royal machine reportedly reacted with frustration, exhaustion, and a sense of grim inevitability. Andrew's scandals were supposed to be over. His exile was supposed to be complete. Yet here he was again, dragging the monarchy back into a story they desperately want the world to forget. Even his strongest defenders, once limited but loyal, have nothing left to say. Sympathy is gone, patience is completely drained. And as the emails circulate, Andrew's position collapses even further. Invitations disappear. Doors that once opened automatically now stay shut. High-ranking relatives avoid being linked to him in any capacity. Even family gatherings, once the one place he could count on, are being quietly restructured to keep distance. It's not punishment, it's preservation. To the public, Andrew is already a fallen royal, but inside the institution, the shift is even harsher. He's becoming a liability with no path back and no role to play. A man whose presence is a risk, whose past is a burden, and whose future the monarchy cannot afford to support. His old life, built on status, privilege, and untouchable confidence, is gone. In its place is a version of Andrew he never imagined he would become, isolated, sidelined, and stripped of the aura that once protected him. And with every new revelation, the palace's fear grows. If this much has reached the surface, what else remains buried? That's the question haunting the monarchy now, because each leak chips away at the wall they built to hide the damage, and the more that wall cracks, the harder it becomes to keep distance between Andrew's downfall and the institution he once represented. The truth is simple. The monarchy may survive this, Andrew will not. All that remains is how much more the public will learn before the final curtain closes on his royal identity, and whether the institution can step back far enough before the next shock hits.